Hello? Hello? Is it working now? I think my microphone was sometimes it does this thing where it disconnects the microphone that I'm using and it just decides that I'm using a different one for a little while. And that what that typically results in is that I just get muted and until I realize that the little volumetric thing isn't actually like moving when I talk. And so apologies, I suppose, for not being more attentive to that. I've been yapping for like a couple of minutes, but honestly, nothing of real consequence. You know, definitely the pleasantries, just like being like, "Hey, everybody, my name's Fabs. I'm a Rice Team VTuber. What's up with that?" I don't know. What's been the vibe on like on like those roll call style greetings? Like I feel like those really work for like the idol type people that are that are supposed to be like they do have roll calls. Idols do have roll calls, and that's very normal. But I feel like for me it'd be I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't be able to put my heart into it. I don't have anything that I want to say about myself that isn't kind of self-evident. And some of it isn't even actually that evident. Like I feel like a lot of people miss the fact that I'm supposed to be a bag of rice, and I have actually been wondering how I should better communicate that. Like obviously I could just improve the detail of rendering, but long term that's just not feasible as a solution. So, gonna maybe I should try. Maybe that's something to do once I return from the stuff that I have to do back in October. Much to think about. Yeah, I remember there's like actual. My workplace has a lot of different benefits, and one of the ones that I don't think a lot of people realize exists, mainly just because it's kind of a pain in the ass to take advantage of in the heat of the moment, is the fact that we do have access to a lot of different trainings on a lot of topics that aren't even necessarily related to our work. Like they're for the other service lines, and it's really great because I'll just be able to access like a digital class on marketing or some such and branding and be like, yeah, I can just look at this. I don't know if my company is charged for them or whatever. I've done it a couple times and nobody seems to have gotten mad at me, so I assume it can't be that much of a problem. But yeah, maybe what I can do is I can take another crack at some of those learnings related to branding and such, because I do think it is helpful. I feel like branding is, a lot of people dislike the term branding just because it does feel very corporate, which is fair. I believe that that's an absolutely justified reaction, given everything. But at the same time, it is, how like there are people who are like, I don't really want to do skincare. I'm not like one of those people, right? Where like they kind of like make gripes about it because they don't really want to change what they're like or who they are for that. But in reality, things like skincare aren't really necessarily tied to your personality. Like it is just self-care, and while you don't need to get super into it, you can get super into it. It has the depth for that potential. It has the potential for that depth, rather. Just being cognizant and aware of it isn't going to like impact you, isn't going to change who you are, and in fact it will provide several benefits just because of the fact that you will be more aware of something that is pertinent to your body, to your presentation. It makes you more conscious of who you are. It gives you a little bit more control, or at least a little bit more information over why your body looks the way it does. And that's helpful. I found that knowing a little bit more about skincare has helped me a lot, even though I maybe don't really go out of my way to take care of my appearance. And I would like to be somebody who does that more often. I feel like it's about time I started doing it more, taking it more seriously. But at the same time, even if that's not your end goal, having some basic knowledge of it stops you from doing something really stupid like rubbing coffee grounds on your face to exfoliate, which, pro tip, really bad for you. As I found out, I remember reading a while back, like, oh yeah, weren't there like coffee ground exfoliants? Those sound really sick, and I have coffee grounds at hand. Why don't I try those out? And I look up this video of this like dude who very clearly does cosmetics not reviews, but like, skincare information for a living. Like you can tell that he either runs his own clinic or he gains a significant profit from operating this as like a video blog. And he is immediately like, oh yeah, no, there's absolutely some benefits to using like substrate for exfoliation, but bear in mind that coffee grounds are like shrapnel essentially. Like hard ground up shrapnel that you're rubbing on your face. And it turns out that your skin doesn't super love it when you give it millions of tiny little micro traumas on purpose. In fact, it's actually rather unfavorable. And I was like nodding my head like, I see, I see. No, I'm a big proponent of demystifying anything that that people would make a face at. I do think that listen, I love hating on some random crap as much as the next guy, right? But I do think that like past a certain point you have to like you can't just like keep saying saying the same things that other people say or like making the same period of jokes. One, because that's just boring and it's going to get old eventually. And two, just because of the fact that if you want to dislike something actively, like not even have a distaste for it, you don't really have a reason much better than, oh, these other people that I hang out with don't really like, are actually not even like these people that I hang out with. Like, a lot of people on the internet are making fun of this, so I'm just gonna hop on. There's obviously huge exceptions to this, right? Like if somebody did something horrible and you're just joining in on the chorus of making fun of them, I think you're good. But like, you see this a lot with things like with things that are, and I don't really like using this term, with things that are like cringy and whatnot, where people will just like make fun of it without really trying to engage with it. And like the thing is that you don't have to engage with it. I feel like that's something else that I need to point out, is that you don't necessarily have to engage with the thing that you're hating on in order to hate it. But I do think that if you make disliking it like an active part of a conversation and consistently go back to that, well, you do need to do a little bit of research into why you dislike it, or at least gain better, how do I put this, like do some recon on why you should hate, why other people should hate it more, because otherwise it's just kind of like you're just repeating jokes that you see on the internet. And while listen, that's a tried and true strategy that I've been leaning on for years. Again, it really does just come down to a matter of saturation and repetition. That's my perspective, at least. Is the music volume okay? It looks a little loud right now. I'm gonna... If I should turn it up, let me know. I don't know. I use VLC to play the BGM that I normally use on streams. And that's fun because VLC is one of the few audio programs I have ever used that has the ability to go above 100% volume. And I am currently at 100% volume, by the way. I have VLC up at 100% volume. Okay, there we go. But yeah, it can go up to like 200%, 300%, some wacky figure like that. And again, I'm sure that's helpful for some purposes, but not really for the ones that I'm using it for. Okay. And yeah, just want that out. I do think in the future it's probably going to be a mixture, kind of like how I'm doing right now, of what I'm used to doing for cell shading and also just blending like this. I think it strikes a nice balance. That being said, I do also want to add a little bit of a highlight to a couple of these areas. See, that's too strong. That's a little bit too strong. This should be good. That's a little too weak, though. Okay, this should be good. Oh, yeah. Okay, we just need to select this area here. Nice. Okay. Then after that, maybe... Is that the darker shadow already? Am I already using the darkest shadow that I have available? Yes, I... No, I'm not, because I am drawing on the wrong layer. There we go. Okay. Oh yeah, we also need to... Hang on, I also need to go back and make sure that none of this highlight section is bleeding over onto the chest here. Because that's very noticeable. There we go. Okay, where was I? Right, the ruffles. You might also be saying to yourself, perhaps I think it's been a couple of weeks, but I think you made more progress on this. Like, I remember you making more progress in this on this piece. That's true, and your memory isn't failing you. However, I did go back and decide that I didn't like how it was coming out, so I decided to restart from scratch on the shading. Just because I'm such a lovable rascal. I don't know. I think part of the reason that I've been frustrated with like the cell shading thing and everything is because I think I see it in my mind as more efficient than what I typically use, or like more efficient than the method that I've been using sometimes with like the blending and everything. And while that's strictly speaking true, I do also think that that qualifies as a moment to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, but is efficiency everything? Am I dissatisfied with how the current blending style looks? And the answer is I'm not really. I'm really not. Hey, Cypress. Yeah, we're clowning a little bit. I think, you know, I do think the honkometer is maybe at a soft 50, hard 45. We're still not like breaking the haha barrier, but you know, we're working up to it. How have you been doing? I know that last week a bunch of different fighting games released, so, and I think you've been, you know, I've been seeing you and David talk all about Tokon and Avatar. So I'm hoping you're having a good time with those. There's so much fighting game. me as a reticent monk in the 1800s. There's so much fighting. Sorry. Yeah, no. It seems like they're both very good though. I feel like I've heard positive things for both of them. Particularly, I've been really liking Tokon's art style. Avatar's is really good. Like I feel like Avatar's art style is very understated just because of the fact that it just looks like an episode from the show. But it looks so much like an episode of the show that it is kind of crazy. It also gave me a chance to go back and, you know, like some of the conversations that we had about Avatar, it kind of gave me the chance to kind of go back and really appreciate just how technically competent it was as a TV show. Yeah, Avatar's good because it's hand-drawn. Yeah. Like, listen, I think Avatar is genuinely a really well-composed, well-scheduled, well-organized TV show. It's really hard to think of something that kind of compares or comes close to it in the current day, because I feel like a lot of it is either mostly episodic or, well, I mean, Avatar was episodic, but it did have a more, you know, you always felt like the characters had a specific goal in mind. Against all odds, Nickelodeon somehow got Avatar. The first time they didn't send that jobber Butch Hartman to work on a project, and they struck gold. And then they never learned anything from that. Now it's all just SpongeBob forever. I remember somebody talking about an experience going to like the Nickelodeon studio and to visit as a guest. And they said that the whole place was like an idolatory monument to SpongeBob and Dora the Explorer, which feels like it tracks. Was Dora the Explorer Nickelodeon? I feel like she was from somewhere else, from a different neck of the woods. Hang on, let me peep Wikipedia real quick. Nope. Yeah, created by Chris Gifford, Valerie Walsh Valdez, and Eric Weiner. Produced by a Nickelodeon Animation Studio. Damn, that's crazy to think about. I've known that girl my whole life, and I still didn't remember that she was from Nickelodeon. God. It's really funny because when I was young, I didn't really grasp the concept of countries. So I assumed that all the cartoons that I watched were made in Ecuador. And I'm like, yeah, of course Dora is Latina. Like, yeah, of course she speaks Spanish. She's from Latin America. Yeah, why wouldn't she be? Like, I'm surprised more people aren't. This also extended to things like Dragon Ball and like I remember catching on Toonami a couple of episodes of Inuyasha, even though I didn't really grasp what was going on. And it was exactly like this. Like I was so confused as to when. So like obviously being a child who didn't know any better, I did eventually like look up free Dragon Ball online on like YouTube and other websites, and I'm like, why is this in Japanese? Why is this in different? Why is this in different languages? I thought this was all in Spanish. The naivete of a child. Danny Phantom could be Latino is the thing. You could very easily make a Latino Danny Phantom. I think this is what the most recent iteration of Ghost Rider is about. Or maybe not the most recent. I don't know. I don't know much about that fella Ghost Rider. Like, he always kind of scared the crap out of me because his whole thing is being a skull that's on fire and like sends people to hell and shit. I don't. Or maybe he doesn't even do that. Like maybe he just like punishes them while they're still alive. I think Spawn was the guy that sends people to hell. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know these things. Probably is the most recent Ghost Rider, and he's a Latino kid from LA. Nice. Okay. I don't know why I always find it so funny when they decide to make superheroes Latino. I don't know. It's not even like a representation thing. Like it's just like the acknowledgement of our existence just occasionally feels a little bit strange. It's like, oh, you remembered. That's unusual. I feel like a neglected spouse in a long-term relationship when their partner suddenly remembers their anniversary. Okay, shrink that down, and then... Okay. Got it. I am pretty happy that I've been going through the hell dimension at my day job this week. Not necessarily because I think I've gained any benefits from it, but mostly because I've been so busy that I haven't been able to have like off-kai FOMO. Because it seems like things are popping off over there. I don't know. I want to try and go eventually, but I'm also kind of worried just because it is off-kai and it is that many people. I don't know. Cons always make me anxious. I still mask up, so I'm still always pretty wary of that stuff. Yeah, V seems like she's having fun. Yeah. No, it does just seem nice. I feel like the energy in that space is really good if you like VTubers, and probably very confusing and hellish if you're unfamiliar with the whole state of affairs. But that's a way that it's always been. That isn't by any means atypical. Like, I feel like if you showed somebody that table of like the VTubers who graduated this year, I think they would assume that most of them died. I do think most people would assume that they have died tragically and that we're in mourning. And in some cases that is kind of true. Like not necessarily in that the streamer has died, but definitely in the sense that they're never coming back to content creation, or streaming, or like talking, and that moment in your life is over. And that does deserve a little bit of mourning. I do think that is, I think it makes sense that you would be sad about that, because you're not going to see that person again. Even if they do come back, you're not. There's no certainty that you're going to see them in the future. Graduating is like being taken to a farm upstate. No, that's so true though. Yeah, Sarah's Fauna has been taken to a big open farm upstate where she has plenty of room to run around and play Hitman. Or whatever it is that she currently does. This is why I really feel bad for Titania, because Mume left, and she has made it abundantly clear that the capacity in which she's coming back is always going to be extremely limited. Like, that shit sucks. Or like Amane Kanata, for example. Like, I know that she's not really intending to ever come back to live streaming, as far as I'm aware. And, in that case, then the heartbreak makes a million times more sense. But again, it always makes sense. It always makes sense because it's always going to be a change. And, it often happens. I don't know why. Maybe that's just because VTubing is like the most constant hobby that I've had in my adult life, which is crazy to think about, frankly speaking. But I ruminate a lot on like the nature of like graduation, and are we going to see this person again? What does that mean necessarily? And it's like it is always like, I don't know. VTubing has made me face the concept of my own mortality more frequently than any other hobby that I think that I've ever really been into. Like, it's a hell of a thing that you need to be able to process like digital grief. I don't know if it's very helpful as a practice run for like actual flesh and blood grief. I kind of hope so, because otherwise I'm going to be real fucked up in a couple of decades for a number of reasons. But it's fascinating what you kind of get used to and how you begin to interact with it conceptually. Oh yeah, speaking of like a sort of memento mori sort of vibe, I don't know if I've mentioned this. I've gotten really into scenting my apartment with candles, right? And I'll just light one, let it burn for a little while, turn it off if I'm leaving the house or something. And it's been working pretty great, because like now my house smells like marshmallows sometimes, and it's nice. But unfortunately, I have noticed this issue that I run into occasionally, where where the candle will like burn faster than how do I put this? Like, the wick will burn faster than the actual candle. So I'll end up with like a wick that's practically about to drown itself under in like the melted wax, versus like a puddle of wax that I'll need to transport into a different container. And recently, I have had the most ingenious idea. Yeah, they disappear too quickly. I mean, the ones that I have are actually pretty long lasting. I'm very happy with the quality of the candles that I've been using because they do last. I don't light them I only light them when I'm really home, and because of that, they do actually last me a fair while. Maybe 2 hours at a time at most. So they do last me a fair while for what they're worth. But they do also have the issue that I was talking about, where they do like burn faster. The wick burns faster than the actual wax or oil is consumed. And so I will end up in this situation where I need to like dispose of the melted wax in a tidy manner, which isn't always possible. 3 wick candles or scented wax melt setup. Tell me a little bit about the scented wax melt setup, Michelle. I'm fascinated by this because the solution that I've kind of arrived at is that now if the wick burns too fast, I'm going to dump. I have a glass container that used to house instant coffee, and I have repurposed it for the purpose of maintaining a. If the wick ever burns too fast, I'm just gonna dump the excess wax into the empty coffee container, into the empty coffee glass jar, and that's gonna be how I maintain its balance. And my plan, once the coffee container fills up, I'm just going to buy a wick, use a drill to get to the bottom of the jar, and then turn the mishmash of different candle scents and potencies into one giant massive candle. Yeah, that's literally DIY reusable candle. But yeah, that's currently the plan. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about like scents and perfumery and such. My skin is very sensitive, so I can't really use any alcohol-based ones. But things like solid perfumes are always interesting, or have always been interesting to me. So it's like this doodad. Don't know what it's actually called. That's 2 parts: a chamber and a bowl. You put a tea candle into the chamber, light it, put the bowl on top, and put your scented wax cubes on the bowl to melt them. I've seen those. My family used one for scented oils. Yeah, no, I've seen those before. Okay, that clicks. That's familiar to me. Okay, and yeah, I guess you know what? I don't even really need to. If that's the case, I don't actually even need the wick necessarily. I could just like put the mass of candle melange into a sort of Baño Maria kind of situation and use that to kind of diffuse the scent. Okay. There we go, and okay. I'm going to add a little bit of additional detail with darker lines up here. I kind of gave him I gave this guy like massive jugs, unfortunately. Like I don't think he canonically has them, but like, I think that's just kind of how this one's gonna shake out. I'd end up doing a similar thing to your DIY setup, but take a matchstick or 3 and stick it in some melted wax and then bam, candle. Ooh, that's a clever idea. That's very resourceful. Average clown. Yeah, you know what they say about big shoes. Ay. Yeah, also he ended up having a very long neck. Big honk. Sorry. Oh, big honkers. My mind didn't even go there. I don't usually call them honkers, but yeah, that's very appropriate. Oh, that's delightful. Whew. Thank you for that. That was really good. Whew. Yeah, I don't know. Clowns. For all of the fear that people have towards clowns, I do think they are like excellent romantic partners. I think people just like fun partners. I think it's very easy to fantasize about a relationship with a clown. Okay. And maybe just a little bit of this darker shade coming in from the armpit like that. Perfect. I do feel like I need to I think clowns nowadays get a bad rep. They're essential to society. That is true. We've always had clowns. Not even in like a sort of ironic, like, oh, we've had clowns as in like we've had stupid people, but like, we've always had some kind of clown in society. There's always been the figure of like a jester or a fool. Also clown girls. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of where my mind is at, personally. I used to be scared of clowns, but then I discovered how how some have boundless joy and whimsy. So true. Yeah, no. I think I was probably scared of clowns at some point. I was a very scared, I was a very easily frightened child, so I can't imagine that I wasn't scared of clowns. Right? Like I just feel like that's a very typical thing for me to be afraid of. Like if I called my parents after this and I asked them, "Hey, was I scared of clowns?" I would absolutely not be surprised if the answer that they gave me was a very strong and unqualified yes. Yes, you were. And that's fair. I feel like children being frightened of clowns is a very typical childhood sort of experience. Graduating from Crown College is rough because you got to be a comedian and a magician, two jobs that are hard to get into. Yeah. No, being a clown has to be such a tough gig to break into, which is probably why they're so good at unionizing. My justification was very pseudo-intellectual teenage reasoning. Why are they hiding their face? What do you not want us to see? God. For me, I do think part of it would have been like how loud they were. I do think like the volume at which they conduct themselves would have been very, very frightogenic. That does sound like a very teenage sort of reasoning, though. Like you say that, and I understand completely what you mean. Okay. Makes it all the more impressive that muffing Steve O graduated from like a pretty prestigious clown college. The idea, again, like, listen, I know that being a clown is no funny business, right? But at the same time, the idea of like a prestigious clown college is just so like logically it has to exist, but at the same time, it's like the phrase, just the phrase "prestigious clown college." Right? But yeah, we've always had clowns, I think, in society. Like, and if we don't have them, we kind of invent them, right? Like they fulfill a very different tone. But like, for example, Chinese opera also had people with painted faces and silk masks who are meant to play exaggerated characters based potentially on true stories, and that are typically well trained in acrobatics and entertainment methods of that nature. But again, very tonally different and also very prestigiously different. Because from what I understand, Peking opera or Chinese opera practitioners are like venerated. Like they have a crazy good PR. Okay, and then we'll just use... this one could use a little bit better kind of coordination like that. There we go. Oh, that looks very strange. But yeah. Is there a clown college near me? Hang on. Canada clown colleges. Holy shit. One North Clown and Creation. Pause. Hang on. Let me put this on the Jumbotron. One North Clown and Creation, where students come from around the globe mind you, to explore the vast and profound worlds of their creativity. Formerly the Manitoulin Conservatory for Creation and Performance, the incredible work that reaches and the reach of its founder John Turner. Fucking fantastic. Tell me about the team. Clown Boot Camp with Jenny Hazelton, September 18th to 23rd. This workshop is perfect for those coming fresh out of the Mask and Clown Intensive, Baby Clown, or for those who seek to reacquaint themselves with the foundation of the style. I think Steve-O's main clown gimmick was being a skateboarding stunt clown? The world is so much more vast than I will ever be able to fully realize. Using various writing and physical exercises to evoke both left and right brain involvement, the participants develop their own unique approach to the creation of material for performance. The mask and color work is expanded upon, including the development of the gesture work, deepening the student's relationship with gestures as both a source of material and as character for performance. The 6 days will begin with an emphasis on exploration and creation, but will move towards the development of pieces for performance. While it is not necessary to bring a prepared piece, students are welcome and encouraged to do so. It might just be a clown certificate. $700 big bucks for the clown boot camp, by the way, with the baby clown mask and clown intensive prerequisite, which seems to be a 3-week course, 2-week course, 16 days, 100 plus hours, $1,500 for that, by the way. Which, you know, is fair. This is vocational work. This is vocational education. I can understand the price is more than fair to me. I don't know, what does it give you? Like what is, like, do you, you know, I don't have the time to get into this right now. I do feel like, I don't know, do clown colleges actually give you certificates? Like, do you get like a diploma, or is the clown college like a proverbial thing? Like, do you get a bachelor's in tomfoolery? Like, I'm so fascinated now. There's no time. There is no time. Maybe some other day. God, I wish I had point redeems still, because I feel like I could make a pretty mean Satsudan redeem for like putting a topic up on the board that I have to research intensively on Wikipedia. Like, that would make a great little just chatting stream kind of background activity. They do have actual diplomas. Okay, good to know. Just kind of imagining a clown with an office who has the diploma hung up on the wall like they're a dentist. Which, again, probably is not only a guy that exists, but is almost probably an expected kind of professional standard. I don't know. I feel like I would be more comfortable. I don't know. I, I don't feel like people check clown credentials that much. Like I feel like for the most part, that's the thing as well. That I feel like the part of the reason that it's so tough to break out into clowning is that there's probably a bunch of people who are willing to undercut you, who are less qualified. Like it's sort of like a mall Santa kind of gig where you can for sure probably get like certified for it, but there's always somebody who's going to be able to do it cheaper and less and worse than you. But the customer's not really going to care about that. Apparently, I imagine most clowns want to join circuses or big performances, and they probably check to see there. That makes a lot of sense. It's much easier to perform as a troupe. Apparently, and I don't know if this is still the case, but clowns have a very strict sobriety policy while donning the clown makeup and garb, which again makes it feel like Steve-O was an anomaly. Yeah, no, that makes sense as well. It reminds me a little bit of like the Pony Express pledge. I don't know. I don't know if you've ever seen that, or if that's a familiar term. Hang on. Pony Express Wikipedia. Yeah, some just use it as a side gig to earn money at birthday parties. Yeah. Huh? For all intents and purposes, it makes sense. Yeah, because you are like trying to entertain people, and it makes sense that you're trying to be having some sobriety in there was probably a good thing. Okay, peep this oath that all Pony Express riders had to make. I name here, do hereby swear before the great and living God that during my engagement and while I am an employee of Russell, Majors, and Waddle, I will under no circumstances use profane language, that I will drink no intoxicating liquors, that I will not quarrel or fight with any other employee of the firm, and that in every respect I will conduct myself honestly, be faithful to my duties, and direct all my acts as to win the confidence of my employers, so help me God. You needed to swear an oath to be a Pony Express rider. Like, imagine if Uber made you swear to something, which, that is probably like what in terms of service agreement it probably is. But imagine if you just want to like deliver burgers for Uber, and they pull out a Bible, and you're like, be like, all right, get ready. You're gonna do a pledge, buddy. You're gonna make an oath. Pony oath. Me when I forget what Applejack's element of harmony is, and I have to like make some shit up on the fly. New Paladin Pact Oath of the Pony. Yeah, no, your oath as a Oath of the Pony Pact Paladin is just the friendship beam cannon that the My Little Pony ponies have. They pledge to Celestia every morning in Equestria. Yeah, no, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but Celestia wasn't actually the one who had the idea to start that. That was actually like Luna's thing. She realized that Celestia can actually hear most of the pledges, and so she kind of just did it as a prank to her big sister. She was just like, "All right, this will really get under her skin," and so now she asks everybody to start their morning with the Celestia Pledge of Allegiance, and that way, every single morning at around starting at around 7 a.m., sometimes 6 a.m., depending on like where the people working are actually getting, when they wake up, Celestia just gets brain bombarded by a bunch of ponies being like, I do hereby swear before Celestia, the living deity of our nation. That is crazy to think about. Like, I know that the Romans had the idea of like their city as a god. Did I just get a My Little Pony lore dropped? That's not a real thing. We bullshit in these parts. Also, hello, how are you, Mono Musa? Nice to meet you. No, we bullshit around these parts. This is by no means official. Oh, when people pray to you, you can hear it? Yes. Luna about to introduce legislation and nobles to annoy her sister. No, it's real now. Well, that's going to be real interesting lore to incorporate into those shorts that they just announced. Maybe this is how we can still save them. God. I do just love the idea of like, the Romans had like this idea of of like Romulus, right? The like the god, divine deity that represented their city. And like it's really funny that Equestria just has that, and they're just like people you can go petition. And like this one girl with anxiety who runs the local library just knows on a personal first name basis. Yeah, I don't know what's going to come out of the Gen 4 reboot. It looks, what I've seen so far isn't exactly, doesn't exactly inspire me with excitement. But you know what? Maybe they'll sell me on it. Maybe they'll turn it around for me. If we pray hard enough, then Rare Jack and Spike will come back. Faring quite well, thank thee for thy inquiry. I do hope thou day has been treating thee wondrously thus far as well. Doth verily, it low-key has. Because this morning I've been working the weekend, right? Like I've been working the weekend because I just needed to get some stuff for my day job done. And, that's never a pretty or a pleasant experience. But surprisingly, it was less stressful than I thought it would be. And I did some things for myself as well. I managed to cook myself a nice little curried stew. I took out the trash. I went grocery shopping. If I pray hard enough, Spike will be a hot adult. Listen, that's going to take more than some divine intervention. I feel like the writers hate Spike already, so I think making him a hot adult is going to be like... You're going to need... You might need like actual divine intervention for that one. I do think it would have been funnier overall if they had obliterated Spike only and then just. I do think it would have been funnier if they had just obliterated Spike and nobody else from the main six. Like Rarity and Applejack are still there, but Spike is just gone. No explanation for where and why. He's just gone. I do think that would be much funnier. Okay, and then... Perfect. Just a little bit more on the sides here, and after that, I think we're pretty much done. I would just need to do some kind of background. Why is the cat in the rice cooker? Oh, you know what? I really do need to start doing something for Rice Feast, or at least give a lore explanation for why it's never around anymore. So that's a mascot that I have for stream. Let me actually go to the. Hang on, let me go to the whatchamacallit, the BRB screen. So I have a mascot for the channel called Rice Beast that you can kind of see there. But the thing is that I haven't really done much with it in recent years. Like occasionally it'll show up in like schedule art that I post or in like little illustrations that I make here and there. But honestly, it's just been kind of in the background. It's edible. Yeah, I mean, so am I. If you're willing to listen, if you have the courage to try. You listen, if you have the courage to try, there's nothing I can legally do to stop you. But I will put up a fight. And I will put up a fight if you try to eat my cat. I'm a furry, so I don't know if that makes a significant difference. I think eating a sentient organism is pretty bad regardless of circumstance. Who knows? I don't know. Is it more cannibalistic or less cannibalistic if you're both furries? Like if you're both cat furries, right? I feel like because like cats would eat each other, right? Don't worry, furries are known to do this, so it won't be out of the ordinary. I see. No, but like listen, hear me out, right? Okay, so wild animals in real life do eat each other, right? Like this is known. This is just a thing that they do. This includes things like cats and dogs. Like cats and dogs will eat each other, will eat each other's corpses, will like eat each other if there's no other food available, etc. My question is, does this mean that like cannibalism for furries is that like, would that feel more cannibalistic or less cannibalistic? Because like you're still eating another person. Depends on the artist. I guess that would make sense. I do think that that would be something that's more interesting with like separate artistic interpretations. Because I do think that both sides are fairly interesting to explore. Because on the one hand, it introduces fascinating kind of dynamics. If you're like, this counts as cannibalism, but this doesn't, it can kind of explain to you a lot about like how the artist perceives, their own approach. Because I imagine that a lot of different people have their own approaches to kind of like the degree to which should be animalistic, or to the extent that they do exhibit animal behaviors. Because I imagine it's like a sort of mishmash between like, oh yeah, I want these to be like fairly realistic animals, so I will make them, they'll mark territory, they'll like do the phlegm in response, etc. And there's other ones that are like, I am not comfortable about thinking these as like animals at all, and I will essentially just make them into humans but with fur. Or, it could also just be an interesting story to talk about. I mean, Beastars ran with this concept, and it did pretty well for itself. I really should finish reading Beastars at some point. I really liked my original read through of it, just because I think that Legoshi is just really funny as a POV character. This dude has no idea what the fuck is going on at any time. And you know what, Twin? Me neither. From what I understand, the follow-up work that the Beastars artist did, Sanda, is also in that same vein of like fascinating and also a little bit weird. Which I guess is just kind of what happens when you're related to the guy who made Baki. Surprisingly, I've never watched or read Beastars. I can recommend it pretty easily, I think. Beastars explores a lot of interesting topics in the context of the world that it creates. And it is a fairly good murder mystery as well. So I think if you're interested in it, you should definitely check it out. Fascinatingly, it is. I do like Beastars because it starts out as this like school murder mystery manga, but then it quickly develops, and you kind of start to see this very partway through the murder mystery as well. It does just turn into a shonen fighting manga with some very interesting origins for power ups. I don't know. I do think that the kind of goat gene for making a philosophical narrator kind of is inheritable, because it also has that same effect with that Baki had on me, where the narrator would say some bullshit and I would just like nod my head and be like, uh-huh, so true, bestie. Which to me makes it a really, really great series. I think if you can get invested into something to the extent where you're willing to suspend your disbelief, and the suspension that it's asking of you makes sense in context, I think that's a very fascinating work to engage with. I think that's the same reason why people like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure so much, is that it constantly challenges your suspension of disbelief, but it'll give you some reasoning for why it should happen, and it's telling a it's telling a compelling story while it does so, which makes it, it makes it go down more smoothly. Quite bizarre, even. One might say. One might say. Yeah. I think the shading that I'm doing makes these stitches look kind of more metallic than I had originally wanted them to, but I think that's fine. Seeing stuff from part 1 compared to anything past part 3, it's like, oh, I see. It is a bizarre adventure. That dude Joseph might have had the most normal adventure out of anybody. Jonathan had a pretty weird adventure, all things told. Dio was up to some freaky shit. I think whenever Dio enters the equation is when shit starts to get freaky. And this extends even to parts where he's not even necessarily active anymore, like part 4 and part 4s and 5 and 6 even. I've still yet to catch up with part 9. I've heard a lot of good things about part 9, and I'm especially fascinated by John Rod and what it represents as, well, really anything. It's good to know that Araki's still got it in him to make some crazy bullshit that nobody's ever thought of before. Okay. I think we're pretty much done with the colors in the foreground on this one. I don't know what to do for the background. Araki is just too Araki, if that makes sense. I think I kind of get what you mean, because I think like when you read and watch and consume enough of an artist's output, you kind of start to get a feel for their proclivities. And I think Araki is just very he could be nobody other than himself, if that makes sense. And you could say that for a lot of different authors. A lot of the greatest ones have that exact sort of, not problem necessarily, that sort of situation. Where, like, you understand that they're so distinctive because they don't know how else to be. It's like if you meet somebody who never uses contractions when they talk, and you're like, you realize that it's not really out of a pretension thing or anything. It's just that they genuinely don't feel that impulse. I have an urge for rice now, and I'm sad. Well, I mean, you could probably get a pod going. If you have a rice cooker, you'd probably get a pod going now, and we'd still be streaming by the time you finish cooking it. Treat yourself. Have it with a little bit of seaweed or something. I need to buy more seaweed again. I need to get another packet of it. I had some last week that really saved my bacon because I didn't have really anything to eat in the house, but I did have like miso soup packets and some seaweed, so I just made some rice and ate it with that. Yeah, if you don't have anything to eat in the house, I cannot recommend enough just cracking open a packet of miso soup and just having it with some rice and maybe some seaweed too. I do have a rice cooker. I'm Filipino after all, but I got gastroparesis and I've already consumed enough that if I eat anything more, I'll just throw up. Oof. That sounds difficult to deal with. I'm sorry for that. It's good to know your limits though. This doesn't quite seem right. Okay. You know what? I think the great thing about this design is that it does have a very strong 3-color scheme. No worries, I've been dealing with it about a decade and a half now, and I'm used to it. Yeah, but I can't imagine it's any. I'm sure it's become more manageable, but I can't imagine it's any more pleasant to deal with. So my sympathies. Thus, sympathies are appreciated and welcomed. That's great to hear. Okay, and then over here. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good. That's pretty good for a background. Just a lot of different blobs, just kind of all over the place. That being said, I do want to decrease the contrast and just make it a little bit easier to look at the foreground. So let's mess with that a little bit. Nice. Okay. Who else did I want to do an art fight attack? Wait. Hang on. Before I do that, just noticing this little gap in the shadow here, then that's really going to bug me if I don't fix that right now. Okay, and then over here. Perfect. Maybe a little bit softer over on this end. Perfect. Or actually, maybe over here too. Nice. Okay. Let's make a new canvas. Another person that I wanted to do an art fight for was my friend Bunny. And hang on, maybe just let's do 4,000 by 4,000. There we go. Art always brings out the ADHD or OCD in people. It's fun to watch. Yeah. It is really funny. I don't have ADHD, or at least I don't believe I do. But at least a couple of people have asked me if I do have it. which could mean nothing. I'm going to err on the side of what do you call? Or on the side of optimism. Okay, so this is my buddy Bunny's character Bimble, and I really like it. Really like them. I had to check pronouns real quick. I really like them. Okay. Actually, you know what? We could. I think I had an idea for how to do this, and I think we could probably get away with a slightly wider canvas. So maybe width 4,000. No, let's call it 5,000. Okay. So the basic idea I had for this one in particular was as follows. I wanted to make Bimble a put them in the corner a little bit. And then this was going to be mostly about the shading of it to deliver the effect that I wanted to have. Okay, and that's going to kind of... The snout is going to kind of extend a little bit over here. Recently, while I've been doing commission work, I've been getting more into using detailed sketches as a basis for the line art. I used to go from like a loose sketch directly into the line art, but I've recently become dissatisfied with what that's producing. So I've tried to go more into like detailed sketch first, and then maybe get some feedback from the client, and then go into line art. I should probably bring Bimble down here just so I can have a good look at them. Just a little guy. Or just men. Just innocent men. Just normal men. I need to remember more frequently that I do just have access to a circle tool. Bimble is a good name. I like Bimble. And I do like the design. Bunny has a lot of knowledge of like these different species and adoptable species that are around. And whenever I look at their art, they have something that I've never I could never conceive of myself. Like this little fella is, you know, they are like a cookie sandwich. They have like one half down here and one half up here, and the middle is cream, and that's very creative. I never would have thought of that myself. So it's always fascinating to see what people invent given certain parameters. I think that's really important for creativity. It's just working within a given framework, or if nothing else, I think emphasizing the autonomy and decision making that is involved in the creative process helps you to approach it more healthily. Because I think if you more strongly want to invent something in a given context, I think that makes it more, gives you a better kind of idea of what you want to create. Like, for instance, from what I understand, this species is called a little bite, and they have like a filling in the middle. And so you want to think to yourself, okay, what kind of filling would I want my little bite to have? What kind of vibe do I want them to have? And you know, that's already a great little stepping stone. This is kind of why I like creating characters for tabletop games, because you have, especially for tabletop games where I have like investment in the game universe, where it's like compelling and interesting and mechanically neat to me. Like for Lancer, I've made like a bunch of different pilots that I'm probably never going to use because I don't actually like playing Lancer very much. But I do like inventing characters that could live in its universe. And so by sort of doing that, you kind of create a more structured decision-making process, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of like this. When you have a blank page, you have the potential to create anything. And that's great. It's awesome because you have a lot of freedom. But at the same time, it's never going to kind of be anything until you decide what's going to occupy that space. And that can be a little bit challenging sometimes because you want to have that creativity, you want to have that potential, but really you realistically you will only ever really have the resources to do one thing with it. So, you know, you have to be more comfortable making decisions. You can't just be, you know, as much freedom as art grants you, you have to be very strict with it because otherwise you're just not going to end up making very much. And, you know, if you find yourself having issues with finding that freedom, most often the answer is just that you need some kind of technical foundation that you need to improve. Like, for example, I've been thinking a lot about posing recently. Like, I feel like I've struggled a lot with poses for some reason, even though they used to come to me pretty naturally before. And what I think I need to do in order to kind of remediate that would be to study posing in, for example, like classical paintings and understand why they gave people specific poses. And sometimes they do have meaning. Other times it's just that they try to make a spiral with their bodies, and that's good enough. That's really all you need to make a strong pose in most cases. It could also be some other shit because I haven't actually looked into it in detail. But that's mostly what I'm talking about. It's all about making decisions, and even though you can do it sort of, you can't get to the point where you're doing it almost unconsciously. I do think having those decisions in mind and taking control of those decisions will improve the satisfaction you feel with something you create at the end of the day. If you on purpose say, I want to do this, this, and that, and this is what I want to accomplish with this piece, I think you will find much more satisfaction in actually accomplishing it than if you just go into it with an empty mind. And, that isn't to say that the empty mind approach doesn't have its own benefits and appropriate applications, but, it's not good to just go with one or the other, either. You don't necessarily need a balance, but I do think that if you start becoming frustrated with the way you create, you do just need to start using different methods. Also, I think I do need to put the nose maybe somewhere around. Okay, yes, that's good for the head shape, but I need to put the nose slightly somewhere else. There we go. Now I might need to actually put the nose a little bit, hang on. Maybe sort of like this. There we go. Maybe a little bit bigger and a little bit lower. But yeah, that's mostly my approach to the whole thing of like having an art block or feeling frustrated with your art. I'm sure there's other approaches as well. But you know, I need something to talk about. Like that's the whole reason I'm here while I draw. Okay. I need to put the eye actually a little bit farther left. Because then I think this makes the most sense for where the head would kind of curve downward. Meaning the other eye would have to be here, and the first eye would have to be around here. I also kind of want to change the shape of the body a little bit. Nice. I'm going to drink a little bit of tea. Ugh, God. So I've been talking. I've talked a lot about how I've been cold brewing tea on and off again, right? And I finally run out of jasmine tea after several months of practicing cold brewing. I finally run out of the little packet of jasmine tea that I started out with, and now I got to move on to oolong tea. And let me tell you, oolong tea's got a very different vibe to jasmine tea. Oh, it has like this very strong aftertaste, and it's not necessarily unpleasant, but it is different from what I've become accustomed to. And like it's so much stronger too. Like I could put it in like maybe half a cup's worth of jasmine tea into a mug and be able to be like, yeah, this is pretty good, you know, fairly strong. I put in like a less than a finger's width of oolong tea into a mug, and sometimes that feels like too much. Oh my god, I'm getting so many antioxidants. Okay, their ear is going to go over here, and then also over here. Okay, this other ear is a little bit too big. What I need to do then is shrink it down, and then... Perfect. Yeah, maybe actually just accent this a little bit. I don't want them to look too much like a mouse. Specifically, I don't want it to look like the mouse. If you catch my drift. With them big old ears. I think when we add the hat, the silhouette will be thrown off, so we'll be safe. Yeah, no, the ear is definitely still bothering me. And I think I know why. It's because I need to... Hang on. Sort of like this. There we go. Okay. And then gonna kind of circle it in like this. And then sort of like that. And I think that's good for the ears. The mouth, on the other hand... Yeah, I think the kind of little face marking is going to be something that's really going to help set them apart from a mouse. What song is this? Oh, this is Third Force. Okay. I was going to say, so here's the thing, right? I have a very extensively curated, like mostly made up of barber beats, right? Playlist for Stream BGM. And it's been very serviceable, but a little while back when I was still doing co-working streams, I picked up a bunch of albums for basically nothing out of the bargain bin of the... Oh, would you look at that? Okay, so Subsequent Technician 19. Honestly, I'm gonna give it like a 6 out of 10 for the username. Subsequent Technician is like a nice combo of words, but I feel like it's missing some punch. Anyway, /ban at that guy. Goodbye. We always get at least one, so I feel like now I need to start doing like name ratings, so I don't become too angry with them. I think it's a good approach. But yeah. Anyway, because I've started buying random CDs from the bargain bin of the record store, I occasionally, and I put them into the playlist. So now occasionally, like a song that I have never heard of before in my life will play, and I'll be like, "What the hell is that?" I know that's not from the original playlist. But yeah, I mostly look for stuff like smooth jazz, um, things that kind of qualify as elevator music, essentially. Which, you know, this isn't. And that's a little bit unkind to it, but, you know, it is very much like easy listening. I find that it's just it's just more manageable to use that kind of music. I also think I've made their eyes too big. This would be the second character that I've worked on today that has a clown nose. I don't think it's necessarily a bad pattern, or, you know, I don't know. It's just strange that it's happened twice. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe clowns are making a comeback, or, you know, may it's a clown moment to shine. You know, I do think that with the bizarre increase in obsession with the phrase whimsy that we've kind of seen observed over the internet, I think they might have a good shot at establishing a presence online. You know, I think like now is the moment if there ever was one. It would be really funny if everybody's addiction to using the word whimsy in the current vernacular has somewhat led to a sharp, like you could like detect an increase in clown college applications based off of that. Like there has to be some kind of data point that was affected by it. That or just like a huge uptick in sales on Amazon of those like glow in the dark star stickers that you can put on the ceiling of your bedroom. Those are nice, don't get me wrong, but they are something of a cheap thrill. You know, not really a commitment to the whimsy lifestyle. Not that I can really speak to that, but the kind of flame of the spirit that I have been nurturing, the only reason that it hasn't been fully extinguished is thanks to the hard work of my friends and family. So, you know, I'm not really in a position to talk smack on the people who put up glow in the dark star stickers. You know, whatever gets you to the next day. I think this one's also from... Yeah, this one's also from a new one from the Bargain Bin Picks. Yeah. It wasn't Bandcamp Friday I don't think July has a Bandcamp Friday, but I ended up buying a few things off of Bandcamp a couple Fridays ago anyway. And I got myself like a big collection of like vaporwave tracks and such, and I'll have to go through those. I did go through a bunch of the ones that I bought. Here's the thing, right? I keep buying these collections of vaporwave or barber beat tracks that I hope that I'll eventually incorporate into the BGM rotation. But the problem is that I never actually end up listening to them. So I never end up like actually like doing anything with them because I don't just want to randomly add an album to the playlist and, hope for the best. Yeah, I feel like it would throw off the vibe a little bit sometimes. So what usually ends up happening is that I'll see somebody who like did vaporwave or barbershop beat stuff make a huge sale on Bandcamp where they'll be like, you can buy my entire discography for $20 and I'll be like, that sounds like a bargain. And I'll buy it, maybe for $15 because, I do want to at least support them a little bit more than the bare minimum for what they've given me. And then they will proceed to clog my library for the foreseeable future until I either get off my ass and finally listen to the albums and just try and find ones that feel suitable for stream BGM, or they will just clog my library forever. And quite frankly, I'll have received my just desserts. What is that middle segment here anyway? Was that meringue? That looks like meringue. It looks good. Okay. Matching any vibe with the right vaporwave track album playlist is true peak, but if the vibes don't match, it can be disaster. Yes, that is very much the case. I feel like a lot of... The thing is, right? Like, for example, one of the albums that I bought from the sale just recently, right, is this... Let me see if I can actually pull up the name so I can give everybody, like, a match to it, right? The Bandcamp... Hang on, let me put this up on the Jumbotron. So yeah, Dream Sequence by Nmesh. Let me pull up the picture for this, right? So, digital album, yada yada yada. Finally, as if proving life remains within this chastised genre, 2014 has produced Vaporwave's magnum opus, an album which rises phoenix-like from the ashes. Dream Sequence, the latest album from ex-heavy metal drummer prolific electronic experimentalist Nmesh, is the kind of record the genre needed. A real slap in the face to haters and detesters alike. The album surpasses Echo Jam's Volume 1, Far Side Virtual, and even Floral Shop in its grandiosity and scope, taking the genre and all music into uncharted stratospheric territory. Now that wasn't really my experience listening to the album. Maybe it would mean more to me if I was more of a vaporwave guy myself. What I will say was that it was a very pleasant listening experience, and part of what it is sort of trying to communicate, a lot of the samples that it uses are like VHS era commercials for different things. And it sounds really interesting. But the thing is that this is sort of more of like an auditory experience. It is absolutely art. It is an album intended to be art. Not particularly good for the vibe that I'm looking for, unfortunately. And that's kind of how it happens, is that these will be fine albums and good enough to listen to on their own, but the purpose that I'm trying to use them for is difficult to reconcile with the experience that I perceive I would be received from listening to them. Like, these are not put in the background and listen to a guy yap kind of albums. These are things that you listen to because you love the genre and want to listen to a vaporwave album. I genuinely forgot that there was a whole ironic into unironic vaporwave is dead sentiment going back in the early 2010s. God, that takes me back. That it is crazy because I would have been in middle school at the time, and I only. So the thing is, I was vaguely aware of vaporwave while I was still in middle school and when I was like 14, 16. This would have been like in the mid 2010s, right? And I actually managed to take some inspiration from it because I remember very explicitly making art in art class that was heavily inspired by the whole vaporwave thing of like putting marble busts on like graphics of beaches and, you know, grid marks and whatever. I might still have those around. I probably don't have those on hand. Maybe. But I do have them somewhere. And I do actually think that they came out pretty well. Let me just browse through my documents real quick and see if I might not have. Probably not. Do I? Yeah, I know. Maybe one day I'll go back to through my hard drives and share it. But yeah, I did a lot of, I want to say vaporwave inspired art, but I didn't even really listen to the genre. I did try to listen to Floral Shop. I think the idea started around 2012 or 2013, and so I'm just looking back in retrospect, like, brother, vaporwave was just a baby at that time. God, just imagining somebody like putting a YouTube thumbnail style kind of text over the picture of a baby and be like, this baby learned to crawl 6 months ago, but it hasn't learned to walk just yet, and the only things you can say are baba, mama, and agabu. Is it washed? Like, yeah. I feel like it's like that for a lot of genres that are more kind of recently developed. Like, I think that, like, what was it called, that thing, that the kind of genre that people put 1,000 gex in? 1,000 gex is, yeah, hyperpop. Right. I do feel like hyperpop probably got saturated. Hyperpop, yeah. I do feel like hyperpop probably got saturated, but I do feel like just because of the like fat expectations of genres, I feel like, I don't know, maybe it is just the way that vaporwave itself broke containment, right? That people were expecting it to get like huge and be like a huge thing, similar to like typical pop music. But, you know, that's never going to be the case for a subgenre or like a genre that's like as niche as, say, as vaporwave, like, for example. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I feel like, if, you know, on the one hand, having the genre get more popularized and be popular is good for like just sheer production. You know, you're going to get a lot of, you know, a lot of people are going to want to hop on the bandwagon and they're going to want to make sounds for that genre. But at the same time, it's like, it's also going to be like the sheer quantity of input into what is supposed to be like the ecosystem for this genre is going to get kind of exhausting. There are a lot of genres that had a flash of the pan moment and then got abandoned by the mainstream. Punk being the classic example, but there's like maybe 2 actually dead genres, and vaporwave has never been that. What would you consider a dead genre? Like I do know that vaporwave has never been that, because I do think that just like the kind of nature of it, it has always just been that it's been made by people who actually believe in it. Ocean grunge? All right, you got my ass with that. I've never heard of that before in my life. And you know, to be fair, I'm not a music guy, but let me Google this real quick. Ocean grunge. Oh god, it doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. We're going on aesthetics wiki. Let's take a look at this. Okay, yada yada yada. Ocean grunge is a music-centric aesthetic that is considered to be a darker version of sea punk. I've heard of that. That started in 2014. It takes a lot of the elements from it in vaporwave, but it has a darker air and color palette applied to it than the usual colorful palette associated with the other two for its visual medium, in exchange for a more restricted color palette of blacks, grays, and muted blues. It takes a lot of inspiration from early vaporwave, drone, new metal, and grunge, and does have some similarities to Witch House. But while Witch House has more of a spooky, ethereal air to it, ocean grunge tends to be hollow and depressing, but still carries the ocean or sea motif its cousin genre carries. Ah, okay. Okay, I'm kind of understanding a little bit of the vibe. The media books being under media for aesthetics wiki is really inspiring. I like that. Hang on. I just saw a crazy sentence in that music section. Musically, ocean grunge has a tendency to have a droning, melancholic sound to it, and has a heavy element of nihilism to its overall aesthetic. Like when one first reads on the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche and hasn't really taken into account the nuances associated with such a philosophy. Aesthetics Wiki is about to pop off on dialectics. Aesthetics Wiki is about to do that whole bit from you don't understand dialectics from Fallout New Vegas. It was similar to vaporwave in the sense of being an internet-born genre, but its main aesthetics were to take grunge music and fuck with it to the point where it's very reminiscent of the ocean and its crushing depth. Died as a genre because it pretty much ran out of ideas. That's depressing. But I guess it can't be helped. I do feel like there's only so much. Yeah, I feel like if the whole thing of your genre is taking other genres' music and kind of remixing it, one, it takes exponentially more effort to create something original in that space. So that's a kind of a barrier to kind of propagating it. And two, if it's from another genre, like grunge is well known as a genre, but I will say that it's not like everybody's producing grunge albums like they are pop albums or whatever. So I do understand why there would be a sort of limitation where like eventually there's just not enough grunge that you can remix or take cues from, and it kind of you just kind of run the original resources. It's almost like a sort of tragedy of the commons sort of scenario, where you kind of run it into the ground. That's a little sad. It doesn't sound like my cup of tea, but I'm sure that there are some people who are still wearing t-shirts with something like "Sea Punk is not dead" written on it in what I hope are like knotted rope letters that as such you would find on like a harbor tour or something. Yeah. I don't know. I like the ocean and the beach as an aesthetic. I'm very much a sunny weather kind of person, so the beach kind of goes hand in hand with that. It's fascinating to put a twist on it such that it's more about the crushing loneliness of the depths of the ocean. I remember Witch House, which was thought up in that ocean grunge aesthetic wiki page, brought up in that ocean grunge aesthetic wiki page, is close to a dead genre, but I still see it at least some artists making it. I think it's a cool genre, kind of hard to describe, but like gothic techno horror trap dance music. Mess a lot with it back in the day. That sounds kind of interesting to me. Yeah, I could get behind that. I feel like I would be surprisingly into goth music, from what or at least for dancing purposes, I would be sort of into goth music. I don't know. I would have to visit an actual goth club at some point, hopefully with a friend, because I feel like I would get kind of in the way if I didn't have somebody more experienced with me. And that's a very silly fear to have, but at the same time, it feels like it'd be a better thing. It would be something better experienced with a friend who's already in the scene. Gothic techno horror trap dance music sounds cool as fuck, though. That's a lot of very good and interesting words put together in one description. If you hear something like a fire truck siren in the background, that's not the music, that's like an actual fire truck siren that's happening nearby. I don't know why I think it's just because I live in sort of like a sort of central thoroughfare of the city, but I feel like this town has a lot of fire and much too much fire engine activity for the amount of fires that we actually experience. Like, surely more things would have burned down by now if as many fire truck calls are for fires as I would assume they were. I don't know, maybe they just want to say hi really loudly. Who knows? Maybe the firemen in this region are kind of lonely. I can understand that plight. Goth dance music is really cool, especially when they don't ignore the post-punk or post-punk influences. Like, yes, give me those dour synths and dancey drum beats with a driving, pounding bass line and some eerie, distorted guitars. That does sound really fun. I think I do need to just find a place that plays music that I would dance easily to and just go there at least maybe a couple times a month to work off stress. Because I've loved every single experience that I've been to where I've gone to like a rave in my region. Unfortunately, there haven't been that many recently. And so I don't really have a lot of options if I want to work off some stress. And I found that it is very effective as stress relief. I don't know, there is just something very lovely about being in a room full of people all just kind of dancing and some of them are talking, some of them are mingling, but you don't even really need to do all that. You just need to dance and be there. And, it's a very nice kind of annihilation of the self that happens. Like, because I think because of the physical movement involved, I think it just becomes very easy to let go of things for a little while. The Eastern European goth music from the 80s that I only discovered because of some goated YouTube recommends nails the vibe entirely. Oh yeah, that is my favorite part of going to shows. That sounds really cool. Eastern European goth music. I feel like it's always Eastern Europe that has like the most cracked artists. Like, you see it a lot with video game development as well. Like, I don't think that Ultra Kill could have been developed by someone from Western Europe. Okay. I think this also happened with that of was it hang on, was it Rubens, Rubens from Eastern Europe? Hang on, Paul Rubens. Let me peep. That's not the guy. Hang on, Rubens artist. Okay, I'm looking for Peter Paul Rubens. Flemish artisan. Okay, Flemish Baroque tradition. Okay, I think Flanders is Dutch-speaking region of Belgium. I'm gonna call that Eastern Europe. I think Belgium is pretty far west, but you know what? If you speak Dutch, you're part of the Eastern segment. It's so wild seeing that band name, song name, Yugoslavia. Like, this music is from a country that doesn't even exist anymore. That is so hardcore. I don't know. Could you claim that you're from Yugoslavia and get away with it? Like, could you be like a LARP Yugoslavian on the internet? Like, could you just pretend to be like a really weird community holdout of people who still believes in the existence of the Yugoslavic state? I don't think it would be impossible per se, but I do think it would be very difficult. Yugoslavian. Yugoslavian? Well, yeah, they sure went. Yugoslavian sounds like some fucking Ben 10 alien. Some kind of alien species from Ben 10. Okay. Actually, let me peep something on Artfight real quick, because I think I might have more time than I think. Okay. Ends in 6 days, 18 hours, August 2nd, 2026 at noon. So that means that I would potentially have Friday and Saturday to do more Artfight things. I'm trying to figure out like the timing on this, because like I said, there's a few more people that I want to hit. And if they're like small, straightforward ones like this, I should be able to still do it. Azimuth. Good old Yugoslavia. Shame the planet doesn't exist anymore. What do you mean it? What do you mean? What does that mean? Yeah, they got them. What do you mean they got them? They got the whole planet? Who got them? What does got them mean? Shame too. I really liked it. Got it. I don't know if I've mentioned this. I have a coworker that I don't really like. He's been growing on me recently, but I didn't really like him up until very recently, right? And occasionally he'll try to hit me with a joke from the internet that I will need to pretend that I haven't heard of before and I don't think it's funny. Like, he tried to explain 6-7 to me once, and I had to like maintain like the stoniest expression of my life while he told me about it. Mostly doing it just to fuck with him. And I think another one of them that he did was like that whole thing about like they got him. And I had to like pretend that I didn't know what that was and that I didn't find it funny. This is one of the biggest benefits of not really relating. Like, listen, there are a lot of downsides to like not really like relating to people in my workplace, but this is one of the big upsides that I can just bullshit about like my knowledge of anything, and they will have no reason to believe otherwise. Like, maybe they can doubt me, but they won't have evidence. It's very freeing in some regards. I do want to try and get along with my coworkers a little bit better. I do think that I at least owe it to them. To try. Okay, and then over here. I do have this one coworker of mine. Kind of interesting. He is a little bit annoying, but I can't bring myself to resent him. Because the thing is, right, he will be on phone calls the whole livelong day, and he has a very strong voice. So he will be talking to the people over the phone, and you will be able to hear him very clearly. He's actually speaking in one of the Indian languages, which I don't really know myself, all day on his phone doing that. And on the one hand, it is very disruptive, and I'm like, okay, I can't focus with this guy yapping on the phone all day. But on the other hand, he's like laughing and chuckling while he's talking with these people on the phone, and it's like I can't bring myself to tell him to knock it off because like he's the only one having a good time in this godforsaken office. If anything, we should try to be striving to be like him. He's the only one of us who's like escaping this place with his soul intact. Okay, and... Okay, so there is a fair amount of space between the ear and the face paint, but we're gonna ignore that a little bit here. Yeah. No, and he's a good guy too. Like he did teach me some very valuable things. So again, I have too much respect for the guy, and I also respect the idea that if you're gonna be at work all day, you might as well be on on what is essentially a Discord call with your friends while you do it. That being said, the other day he got into a real heated argument with one of the managers. Not because of the whole phone call thing, but because apparently him and the manager were having some kind of dispute about the history of India. And like the only parts of the argument that I managed to catch and understand was the manager like gesturing and pointing very aggressively at the computer and being like, "Google it, Google it, Google it." Like he was just like being like, "Google it right now, bro." Ay, ay, ay. Going through the office is so much fun. That's why I do it almost every day. That, and if I don't leave the house enough, I do eventually start seeing the little that little insanity meter from Bloodborne start to kind of pop up at the corner of my vision. I'm taking a bit of time off of work in the next coming month, and the thing is that I think everybody will expect me to be gone, but I'm still gonna go to the office. I think I'm just not gonna be working necessarily, and I think that's gonna throw a lot of people off. And I'm looking forward a lot to the kind of market reviews on that activity. Okay, and then just kind of blending this out a little bit. On the one hand, I would love to work a work from home job, but on the other, I do like not having to always be at home. So it's like, damn, yeah. I especially like not working from home. Um, okay, so this is gonna be a little bit weird. I'm okay working from home when my apartment isn't like super tidy. I love going to the office when my apartment is super clean. Because then when I come home, I'll come home to my clean apartment and I'll feel like a normal person. Like the dishes will be done, and like the floor is swept, and I'll be like, damn, this is actually kind of refreshing to come back to. Meanwhile, if I work from home, I'll just kind of let things rot for a little bit until the weekend comes, and I'm like, you know what, I probably shouldn't live like this if I want to be a well-adjusted person in the long term. And I'll do the dishes and do the laundry and whatnot. Thank God I live alone. I think my roommate would have killed me years ago. That feeling has forced me to clean my room on many occasions because, wow, do I feel so much better after not coming home to a mess. Yeah. Now, it does really get to a point where you're like, no human should live like this, and you get off your ass and you pick stuff up. Okay, and then adding this. There we go. But yeah, no, it does create a sort of sinking feeling in your stomach that nothing will ever be right again. If you come home to your apartment and you realize that it's, like clothes are on the floor, the dishes aren't washed, there's like trash on the counters, and it's like you do just feel very miserable for your inability as an adult to take care of yourself. Like it's very much an embarrassment sort of negative feeling more than anything, I think. Even beyond the whole thing of like it's just not good to live in messy conditions, mentally or physically. It is just like kind of like the self disappointment that really hits hardest. Okay. Oh, I forgot the little pom pom on the hat. Hang on. There we go. No, it really is truly miserable that we rarely have enough time in the day to take care of ourselves, take care of our environment, and then also, do something fun. I have marked an improvement in both my mood and energy levels when my place is clean, but a marked decrease in both when it's all messy. Yeah, and it's tough too because you have to actually clean it while you still have the debuff active. It's very easy to essentially go on a sort of losing streak with your mental health when it comes to just like cleanliness. I should do the tail. There we go. Nope, wrong color. But yeah, I do think part of it is that you just do have to be kind to yourself. Not only in the sense that, oh yeah, it's messy now, and you could have avoided this, but you didn't, but that doesn't make you less of a person. It's also just like you will benefit from having a clean apartment. Go clean your apartment. Like genuinely, it's just having the impetus to be nice to yourself that drives a lot of this. And you have to want to be kind to yourself because otherwise the whole thing kind of falls apart. Do they actually have a second little thing on the ribbon? Hang on, let me. I have Bunny's actual reference over here as well. Let me. Okay, no, mine also works. Mine also works. Okay. But yeah, I kind of wanted to go really crazy on like the way that the shadows are displayed on this one. But first, let's finish the colors for everything else. And then this one here. Okay, nice. Also using the same kind of frosting color for the bow tie. And yeah, just using pure white for the inside of the eyes. Right, the sprinkles as well. Yeah. I think something that I've been benefiting a lot from, on to switch the topic to like things that are good for focus. I think something that I've been benefiting from recently is understanding like the kind of, I don't know how to put it, like I read a thing about a study, right? Which, isn't typically the best impetus, like 100% foolproof impetus to do something, but it has helped me in this case. That, like, even having a phone in your possession when you're trying to focus can actually dramatically impact the extent to which you can focus. And I've been trying to, like, approach that from a more practical perspective recently, being like, okay, am I looking at my phone? Like, how often am I looking at my phone? And it's been helping me a lot with being able to focus a little bit. I should probably make this one. Wait. Okay, so yellow, white, blue, red, yellow, white, blue, red, yellow, white. No, but then there's two reds, but then there's two yellows. Okay, put a red here. Yep, that seems okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. And maybe another white here. Okay, that'll... No, wait, then there's two yellows. But then there's two whites. But then there's two yellows. I feel like I'm doing one of those puzzles where, like, if you flip a button, it'll, like, turn the other buttons off. There we go. No, but then that's two reds! God damn it! Okay, another yellow here. And turn this one into red. Okay, that makes sense. That's perfect. I've noticed I get way more stuff done if I do something as simple as putting my phone in a different room. Yeah. Exactly that sort of thing. And like the thing that I found is that to an extent, I also manage to bypass this if I'm listening to music on my phone. Like if I'm using my phone specifically for music, I don't get as distracted as easily. Although to be fair, the one thing that has been like ultimately the one like master level hack that I've found to avoid getting distracted by stuff on my phone is to run out of data in the middle of the month. And so that way I literally cannot access any digital functions on my phone or any online functions. I can't check Discord or whatever. And that has been the 1 month that happened to me, I got like way more done because I just literally just wasn't distracted by what was in my phone. Also, I kind of want to redo the belly details here. Hang on. But yeah, no, like even if it's like a rain sounds ASMR video that I've got on the background, it'll like if my phone is in front of me, I'll just occasionally like just flip it off to check it to check another app or something. And that's been like kind of grasping just the extent to which I do that has been very helpful. There's always like 1 or 2 months of a year of my life that I will just completely lose to reading manga on a second monitor or something. Like it just happens where like there will be like a 1 or 2 month period where I'll just like devour 2 entire series in like in like the span of a couple of weeks. And while that is great for my literacy in some cases, it's not so great for my productivity. Like this year, I read the entirety of One Piece up till like, I am up to date on One Piece. I've read One Piece from chapter 1 to, and I've read parts of One Piece before. I've never gotten as far as like it consistently through my read-throughs and watch-throughs. I've fallen off before I could get to like Water 7, for example. And this time I just finished reading it. And while that has been great for me for like participating in discussion and also just enjoying One Piece in general as a reading experience, I do recognize that time commitment did have severe consequences. Maybe one day I'll be able to be trusted to have the Jump Plus app on my phone again, but probably not for a while. I also managed to read the entirety of Yu Yu Hakusho, which provided a lot of context for other things that I've read. Okay, here we go. There we go. I also found out that apparently in Yu Yu Hakusho there's literally a panel, and I posted this on V's server. Let me see if I can actually bring it up right now. Hang on. Here we go. Let me put this up on the Jumbotron real quick. Urameshi, on a power scale of 1 to 10, you're a 10. Me, I'm just a 6 or 7. And let me tell you, when I actually read this line, I had to like bite my lip to not say anything. I love the manga, but the anime is in my top 3 of all time. I feel like I should probably like rewatch some of the best parts in like my favorite parts in the manga through the TV, because from what I understand, the manga's pacing was kind of fucked up because of, you know, they got Tagashi in the torture nexus just consistently. So from what I understand, the anime was able to add more detail to certain fights and areas, which I think the series would have greatly benefited from. Okay. The amount of times I've rewatched Dark Tournament is a lot. I mean, that's great though. That's good. I don't know. I think it's beautiful to have like a favorite something. You know what I mean? Like, I think having a favorite arc, like, you know, even if it's not your number one, having something that you've rewatched time and time again is a very precious thing, because I feel like very few things kind of can captivate someone like that. Also, the Dark Tournament is genuinely just that good. Toguro was that guy. Toguro is such a dickhead. It's really funny as a villain because he's like he has like a lot of genteel qualities, but he's also just a dickhead for no reason on several occasions. Like, it's hard to call him evil. He's very Nietzschean in that he's not necessarily evil. He does evil things, but I don't think like he like does evil out of enjoyment. I think he's just really strong and nobody's been able to really stop him. And when you're really strong like that, the only real options for a career are just to go into violence professionally. Dark Tournament is just one of those best arcs of shonen out there. Like, right up there with the Namek Cell Part 4, Battle City from Yu-Gi-Oh!, the Chimera Ant arc. Like, it's just phenomenal. The Dark Tournament is very good just because of I do feel like it has a lot of weak points, but it is very good as like a standard setter for like the idea of a tournament arc, if that makes sense. And you know, I'm guessing it was probably like pretty close to originating that, or popular, if nothing else, like having an influence to popularize it as a concept, right? Like this idea of an arc where, my God, you know, an arc where everybody's just like in an elimination style tournament. And you know, the I don't know. Hang on. When was like hang on, let me okay, so Dragon Ball and Yu Yu Hakusho. Because to me, like the number one tournament arc of all time is going to be the first and second on-screen tournaments from Dragon Ball. Okay, 1990 and 1986. So Dragon Ball started. Yeah, okay, so. Yeah, 1984 for Dragon Ball and 1990 for Yu Yu Hakusho. So by then it was like very much an established trope. But yeah, a lot of ways to put fresh spins on it. It's also really interesting because you see in a lot of the Dark Tournament that the main characters just genuinely have the odds stacked against them in just unbelievable ways. Like we've been following Urameshi and everybody for a while, and we know that there are no pushovers. But then, like, we get to the Dark Tournament, and everybody is just fucking going on all cylinders and fucking on them for no reason. I remember if it was in the manga, but one of my favorite Toguro lines is from right after he kills the tournament committee, and Sayako offers him a drink, and he says, "If you don't mind, I'll have an orange juice over ice." He also says that in the manga, and it's really funny in that time too. What a funny ass thing to say after you kill people. By the way, like, and can I get you? Both are really funny to say after killing, after like murdering a room full of people. By the way, one of them being like, "Hey, can I get you something to drink?" And the other guy being like, "Actually, I'll have some orange juice if you don't mind." If you've got any, like, I'll take some water, but if you've got orange juice, you know that'd really hit the spot right now. I've really worked up a thirst. Need to replace my electrolytes. Actually, I don't think orange juice replaces electrolytes, but you know. Hmm. Okay. I'll have a virgin screwdriver. So an orange juice over ice, please. Yeah. Okay, so here's what I want to do for this one. I'm going to turn down the luminosity and turn up the saturation way up. Oh, shoot, hang on. I forgot to do something real quick. I need to do the pattern on the hat. Oh, okay, the nose and the hat are much brighter, and I also need to remember to do the cheeks. Get out of here, man. There we go. Yeah, honestly, the more saturated colors from the original palette are probably going to be better for what I'm thinking about doing. I remember. Actually, the whole virgin screwdriver thing reminds me of a joke that I heard once where they were like, where I think somebody was like, "Hey, can I have a Shirley Temple?" Sure. And can you make it virgin? And they're like, "Yeah, I know how to make it." The wordplay was such that you could either like understand it as the bartender being called a virgin or the person requesting a virgin drink, and it was obviously the latter. But I do think that it was just a funny joke. I don't like just the idea of somebody like being so sensitive about their virginity that like when somebody asks them to make them a virgin drink, they're like, "Yeah, I know how to make it." Why do we call drinks without alcohol virgin drinks? I feel like a virgin could get drunk if she wanted to, if he wanted to, if they wanted to. I remember that. Okay, I remember that extra virgin olive oil is the one that you can eat. That you don't necessarily need to use for cooking. I don't know. I do feel like it's just like a shorthand that was probably developed. I don't know. Maybe it's sort of like how diners have like that internal language for certain meals and food. You know how like they'll like how somebody's like burn it, drown it, and make it wild or something like that. Burn it, drown it, make it swim or something like that. What was that one from SpongeBob? I don't actually know why cocktails without alcohol are called virgin. Hang on, what was it? SpongeBob diner order. Bubble Bass's order, yeah. I'll take a double, triple bossy deluxe on a raft, 4x4 animal style, extra shingles and a shimmy with a squeeze, light axle grease, make it cry, burn it, and let it swim. That's the one. I do like that and how any profession, if you give it enough time, will just develop its own sort of cant. It's not necessarily indecipherable if you're not part of it, but it is difficult to parse. Binging with Babish decoded that order in a video. I think I remember that. Yeah. I didn't know that the guy was still active, this was in the past, obviously. But I thought, okay, I didn't think that he died, but I did think that maybe he just like dropped off the face of the earth at some point. But yeah, I think I remember parts of that. Like, make it cry means like give it extra onions. What was it like? Hang on. I don't remember double triple bossy. Okay, 4x4 animal style. I don't remember that. Extra shingles. I don't remember that. Shimmy and a squeeze. I think that's like orange juice. Light axle grease means like low fat or low oil or something. Make it cry definitely meant extra onions. It's a big fuck of a patty melt that sounds great after a night of revelry. I do like the capital R revelry. It makes it sound much more official. Okay. Honestly, I do think that greasy food before, not when you wake up, but not after you wake up, but before you go to bed, after a long night out, is just really peak. I at least personally enjoy it. I know some people hate having greasy food after they've had something to drink, or if they've been out late. And that makes sense too, because some people have slightly more delicate stomachs. Maybe they don't process grease quite as good. It's understandable. Okay, and then over here. I need to do some sorcery in order to make this look less like it's just a solid thing in front of their head. All revelry is official to a rowdy gal like me. Yeah, I got a Whataburger after the show I went to last night. It ruled. Yeah, that sounds nice. Just thinking about like a municipally ordained reveler, which I guess would be just sort of like a community-driven hype person. I don't know. I think that position actually sounds kind of sweet, honestly. Okay, and then we're just gonna do this. Wrong way around. Andrew WK is like that. I feel like you've mentioned that guy a couple of times. I want to retain the sort of mystique of him as some kind of bizarre party entity. Okay, expand by 1 pixel. That should be good. Or actually, no, wait, we need to select the rest of this first. Okay. Okay, the part we would have to select is around here. Enter WK is like, I love the guy and he's still got that mystique to me. Awesome. Sometimes you don't live long. Sometimes you don't actually live to see. You don't see. Okay, let me try to organize my thoughts on this. Sometimes you don't get to see the hero turn into a. Sometimes the hero doesn't live long enough to turn into a villain. Sometimes the hero just remains a hero forever. And that's pretty awesome when that happens. Oops, I forgot that I also selected the bottom half here. That's going to come up in a minute. I did forget to add the blush, but you know what? I can do that later. Patron saint of partying, the inventor of party metal, host of Cartoons Network, Destroy, Build, Destroy. What's Destroy, Build, Destroy about? I haven't heard of that one before. Also, party metal sounds like it's a lot of fun. DBD is a classic. Oh, hey Ryan, how you doing? Okay, put this up. I feel like I should probably try to make the the shading on the eyes a little bit less intense. Doing okay? Finishing up a commission? Nice! Hope it goes smoothly. Okay, yeah, that the shadow on the eyes is definitely a little intense. We can probably stand to pare that down a little bit. It was from a live action era of Cartoon Networks. 2 teams would destroy stuff, build it into something else to do challenges, and the winner would destroy the loser's creation. That does sound kind of awesome. Okay. Where's the lasso tool? Here we go. Okay, and then we're just gonna remove the selection from over here. God, I do miss shows where like people will just like build random crap for no other reason than perhaps the love of the game. I feel like we need to start bringing those back. I feel like there are some YouTube channels that probably satisfy that same itch in a child's brain, but I remember being really interested in stuff like Mythbusters and stuff as a child, which, you know, is not necessarily indicative of like any larger and greater needs for child development, but you know, I do think it is helpful to give a child the ability to see, you know, the kind of work that goes into manufacturing things and creating things. Stuff like how it's made, especially, was, I remember, like, really my jam. There we go. But yeah, or things like Art Attack, even. I remember really liking Art Attack as a series. Hang on, I'm gonna try something real quick. I'm gonna bump up the saturation on the little sprinkles on the cream part here. God, this makes me want dessert so badly. I showed some excellent self-restraint and didn't buy any sweets while I was out grocery shopping earlier today. And it has been haunting me since then. And like, you know, it's very typical to say, oh, you shouldn't show restraint if you're like grocery shopping. But the thing is that like, you know, sometimes it's nice to just challenge yourself, just to make sure that you've still got it, that you're still the one in charge. You're still calling the shots for your own body. In that regard, self-restraint can be quite liberating. But let me tell you, I'm not confident I call the shots sometimes. Okay, there we go. That's a good color. I should try, now that I have some time off eventually, I should try get into baking again. I think for a long time what stymied my passion for it was the fact that it didn't have a working oven. There was another live-action Cartoon Network show that was called Dude, What Would Happen, that was like Mythbusters but for teenagers. Pretty good too. Cool. Yeah, I think that's also like a thing that that one webcomic XKCD does, right? Where they take like ridiculous questions like, you know, could you fly with a machine gun jetpack? And then they like do the math behind what you know, not only can you do it, yes or no, but whether or not what it would require in order to be feasible. For the machine gun jetpack one, it is actually fairly feasible if you have like a GAU 8 Avenger, which is really fun to me. I just love that jetpack joyride could be a real thing that somebody would do. I've been recently thinking that I should start getting a subscription for whatchamacallit, a streaming service again, but I don't know which one I should try and get. I've been running out of stuff to watch on YouTube, and I think that only ever watching YouTube videos with my meals or listening to podcasts with my meals has had some kind of psychological effect on me. Like, I need to start like watching actual narratives and shows and whatnot. This doesn't seem like exactly the right color, but I think it'll fly. Okay. But yeah, I think more than anything, I just want to be able to watch something while I eat and not have to suffer through another tedious HelloFresh sponsorship. I mean, I could just try to get a thing for the Criterion Collection, but honestly, that's almost like overcorrecting because then I'm not going to have enough time to eat while I actually watch whatever I'm trying to watch. I'll be too engrossed in the cinematography. I like a selection on Prime, TBH. I might have to check it out. Am I going to individually shade every single one of these sprinkles? Yes. Yes, I am. The white ones are going to be tricky. Okay, and then over here. You've got Invincible, The Boys, the new Hokuto no Ken series, and The Legend of Vox Machina. Oh yeah, I forgot that. I forgot that Invincible was on Prime. And I think maybe just adding a little bit of a soft erase over here. Okay, and now for my next move. Just gonna add a little bit of a thing here and a little bit of a thing here. Okay, now for my next move. I'm going to do that trick where you use a slightly brighter... Okay, so how did it go again? Okay, so you took one of these two, and then you got a little bit brighter, and then using the spray brush tool, you would go around the kind of perimeter of... No, that's not right. Yeah, this is better. Yeah. Okay, this is working perfectly. Just need to be a little bit more intensive with it. But yeah, I remember that you said that you were liking the direction that they've been taking with the new um, Fist of the North Star series, Michelle. I remember that you posted a couple of clips of it. It's been really great watching Pearl get into Kengan Ashura while that's been going on. Kengan Ashura sits in that kind of like sweet spot in the middle where it's like it has enough moments to kind of keep you invested, but it's like it's objectively kind of mid, but it has enough hype moments and interesting approaches to storytelling that you kind of just stick around just to kind of watch the train wreck reach the final destination. It's actually quite good. I rag on it a lot, but Kengan Ashura is actually quite good. Okay, and then kind of up here is also where we're going to need that. There we go. Maybe just a little bit up here, too. just so that it kind of matches the rest of the line here. And then for this one, what color should we have for this one? Maybe something like this. The new Fist of the North Star series is super good. Definitely the best adaptation since the '84 anime. That's high praise. Okay. I can't stress how good the new Japanese VA for Kenshiro is. He fucking nails it. That's great. I'm glad. Yeah, no, they definitely had some big shoes to fill. So I'm glad to hear that they've been knocking it out of the park. Okay, and then between these two, I'm gonna want something like this. No, a little bit brighter than that. Not quite that cyan. Maybe around this much? I don't know, that might be too much. Yeah, that's too much. Needs to be a little more subtle. A lot of Kenshiro VAs after Akira Kamiya, the OG, could get the deep voice right, could get the emotions right even, but they could never hit the right highs needed for the famous and this one can. Honestly, that is a crying shame that more of them couldn't hit the high notes. I feel like you would almost need two guys because I think like the thing is that the is like, for one, it is very iconic, but on the other hand, I do think like it needs, you know, it is kind of like a nod to like the original martial arts aspect of the whole thing, which to me is important. I don't know how important it is for others, but I do think that having it is extremely helpful. Or rather than helpful, I think it kind of emphasizes the kind of fighting style that the Fist of the North Star is supposed to represent. That is like it's like it's very much like a 90s action movie martial art. You know what I mean? Like it absolutely has roots in like legitimate martial arts, but it's also like very much supposed to be its own thing. I feel. I don't know how to describe it succinctly. Like, okay. You know how like in how movies popularize the idea of a therapist having like a big red leather chair that you can kind of recline on during your visits? It's sort of like that, where like a lot of people expect martial arts to use a lot of ki, which is what that whole ta thing is. But at the same time, you know, like in a lot of cases, it's not quite as exaggerated because like I think the main reason for this was like Bruce Lee's influence because like he was crazy at doing that, right? He had like a really good one. So I think because a lot of people were ripping on Bruce Lee or riffing on Bruce Lee rather, not ripping. Ripping sounds bad. Because a lot of people were riffing on Bruce Lee, I think it became kind of that sort of standard expectation. And I think that's why I'm saying it's almost like a movie kind of martial art. Because really, I think it is a matter of preference. A lot of people have ki that is like more subdued. But you do find people who do have like very silly sounding ones just because it is supposed to be just you expressing breath at an absolutely astonishing pace in order to exert more force for a single blow. Like it's never going to be easy or pretty to do one. Okay, the ears I'm not super happy with. Let's try and root and do those from scratch a little bit. Because the rest of this is looking real nice. I think part of it is also just the shading of them is also throwing me off a little bit. Okay. There we go. Maybe not that saturated, maybe a little bit lower. Like a good example of someone who got it mostly right but couldn't hit those was Kiryu's VA for the Ryuga Gotoku Fist of the North Star game. Bless his heart, he makes an otherwise very good Kenshiro. Yeah. No, it is tough because, like, I think if you want to get, like, the deep voice that Kenshiro has, you do just need a guy who has, like, a deep-ass voice. But because of that, you know, like I said, Kiais are, like, a very personal thing. And typically speaking, somebody who has a deep voice will have, like, a deep exclamation, right? That's just kind of how it goes. You can't really, like, force somebody who has a high voice to yell deeply, or have somebody with a deep voice to yell with a high pitch. But yeah, it sounds like this guy's managed to get the best of both worlds. Very talented. That doesn't seem right. Really funny how the Amazon English voice acting does a really bad job at talking normally as Kenshiro, but he can actually do the that's really well, and that's why they got him for it. Fairs, honestly. Like, listen, if you get a guy for Kenshiro and he can't really do any decent voice, but he can do the really well, I think you just take you just take him as is. Just about to mention that. Oh my god. You've been keeping up with the series too, then, Ryan? Okay. You watch the City of the Wolves Kenshiro trailer and groan until he hits the super and go, well, at least he got that right. No, only seen clips? Nice, okay. I need something more than this. Maybe like, yeah, okay. Nope. From a distance, that no longer looks okay. Okay, I think that looks nice. Hi, Grand Blast, how are you? Started doing short workouts during the ad breaks. It kind of rules. Awesome. It really sucks a dog on him, though. I'm sure he's not intentionally trying to put on a bad performance. Yeah, no, that's the thing, right? Listen, you always try to give the voice actors and the people and the actors in general, the benefit of the doubt because, they're working a job. It's not like they clock into like one of the more prestigious roles that they've ever gotten and be like, yeah, I'm gonna do a dog shit take on this guy. Like they're just trying to do a good job. And sometimes the direction isn't there, sometimes it's just that they don't have the sauce. But you do try to sympathize with them. Unless they're highness pieces of shit, in which case, you don't really you don't gotta hand it to them, but even then, like, you have to just have sympathy for the fact that it is an art form, and two people's take on one subject are going to be very different. Okay, and then maybe also for the cream puff part here, I think maybe we can use the same one as this one up here. Yeah, like that. There we go, and use a soft eraser to maybe just round out this edge. Starting a new book called Blood Meridian. Oh, shit. From the name I'm vibing, it's some sort of wuxia? Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah, let me go know how that goes, by the way. Whew. Yeah, have fun with Blood Meridian, buddy. Maybe keep your expectations low for the wuxia aspect. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't have, the parallels aren't there, but maybe maintain an open mind. Maybe don't go into it expecting it to be a wuxia. I'm not going to deny that it has some wuxia-like elements, but I'm going to maybe recommend that you temper your expectations, just for your own benefits, perhaps. I'm fascinated by Blood Meridian because I don't think I'll ever actually read it. Like, even I know that it's the current book club book, right? I do understand that. I am fascinated by its characters and writing. I don't think I'll ever properly read it. This guy sure loves his period accurate words. Oh boy. Yeah, that's a bit of a toughie. Can I just like Gaussian blur this? Needs to be a little bit less. No, the saturation's fine. The actual color, I think, is what needs fixing. Yes, sir, that looks good. I do love how brutal his writing is, though. Very fitting. I do, like, based on the subject matter that I'm aware of covered in the book, I do think it is fitting that the writing itself is very harsh and brutal. I really want to read a Thomas Pynchon novel at some point because I'm convinced that I would love his prosaic style, but I just haven't had the time to tear into one. Like, from everything that I've read about Thomas Pynchon's writing style and prose, it does just seem that he follows the same school of bullshitting that I follow, where it's like there's this like pseudo magical thing that happens, but it's very hush hush, and I do love bullshitting about that. But maybe the vibe's slightly different. Got the book from La Biblioteca en inglés y en español. That could be kind of a fun project, you know. Maybe mixing up Blood Meridian in both languages. Maybe spotting translation difference. God, the idea of like, I do wonder. There has to be, right? Like, there has to be like similar to how in manga nowadays we have like people who are like, actually in the original Japanese, the word that they use is like this, and this, which actually has slightly different implications in terms of meaning. Like, there has to be something like that, right? For non-English readers of English novels and comics. Right? Like, English as a language probably has less nuance than Japanese, or like fewer like tone indicators. But I imagine that there has to be something. You know, there must be something there, surely. I picked the wrong color for this section here, but it does remind me that I do, in fact, still need to do the little blush on the cheeks. Bunny really makes such cute, such adorable little creatures. They're very good at it. Okay, and then we're going to use darken. Multiply seems good. No language will ever have a word or phrase that matches the deep meaning of when you call someone broski. Yeah, the closest that we've had so far is nakama in Japanese, but it still doesn't really capture the sort of the profoundness of it. You know what I mean? What sort of vibes does Bana have? Bana is like bud or pal. I think Bana is like pal or buddy. Like Banela is like best buddy, I think. Broskima. Yeah, because I think like buddy can have like the sort of profound. Bana I think feels like very much. Yeah, I think Banda hits a good middle ground between like the casualness and like broad levels of friendship that like Bana that Buddy has. Panela though feels more like it's like saying like close buddy, like bosom buddy. I think we're done here. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I really mostly wanted this to be an exercise to do this kind of rendering here. Oh, actually, wait, that's a good idea. Hang on, let me do something real quick. First of all, let me correct this because it looks a little bit rough right here. And double check if there's anywhere else that I'll need to do that, like right here. Any word matches for tubular or radical? Chévere would be a pretty good one. Chévere means like swag, essentially. So I do, and from what I understand, most people don't use. It's a little bit out of fashion now to say chévere. It's almost like saying groovy, or maybe not. Listen, I'll be going to Ecuador later this year, and I'll have my second cousin be able to fill me in on all kinds of all the cool slang that kids are using these days, assuming they're not using English loan words. Yeah, chévere is pretty close to tubular or radical, though. It captures the sentiment, if not the spirit. Perfect word for a guy like me who unironically says groovy. Yeah, I've been really taken to using fabulous and excellent just completely unironically. Like like somebody will get me a file that I need at work, and I'll be like fabulous, and just like stone face without any kind of like expression betraying my face. Groovy is a lot of fun to use. I honestly do think that my life improved after starting to say groovy. And to think that this is all to blame with that Ashley Williams is to blame for this. Or rather, I should say that it's thanks to him. Blame sounds a little harsh. Okay, and then post this on top. Yeah, no, this needs to lower luminosity significantly. There we go. My old Spanish textbook was called Que Chévere. That's beautiful. Oh god, Que Chévere. That's really fun, actually. I love that. Okay, is there anything else that needs to be done for this one? I think we're pretty much set. I might end things here for tonight, honestly. We've been going for a little bit, and I do have an early morning tomorrow. There's a Spanish My Little Pony forum. I'd like to see if they have any opinions on the sub or dub. Honestly, I would like to know if Spanish has its own version of Brony. I do think it's probably just the English loanword, but, you know, it'd be thrilling if they did. Queridas Princesa Celestia. Hoy día mis amigas me dijeron que mi lenguaje está pasado de moda. Okay, maybe... Hang on, where's my lasso tool? There we go. Alright, for real then, I'm going to be saying my goodbyes. After I name this file. Alright, everybody, take care. Have a great few hours left of your weekend. Have a great week, rather. I think that'll be a better send-off. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you all next week. Talk to you later. Bye.